All right, guys, happy end of the week and welcome back to another episode of the pod. This is a solo episode with me, and we are going to be answering some of your questions that you submitted on Instagram via Instagram questions, and then also some of the NGL questions. And it always takes me by surprise that so many of the questions, when I reach out a scientific hand to help, when I reach out a professional hand to help, it's so funny because so many of the questions are more personal, they're more based on my opinion, and more based on like my views, opposed to sort of the scientific literature. So we're going to go through them. I'm super pumped because obviously it's the content that you guys want these questions to be answered by myself, want to see my views with particular things. And yeah, in terms of, before we get down to business, I'll give you a bit of a rundown on this week. If you are not following the YouTube already, I will pop the link in the show notes. And then likewise, obviously make sure you are subscribed to the podcast and you comment, rate, review, so that we can bring on more fun guests and we can keep the podcast growing, because as a community, guys, there's over 100 of us now, which is awesome. So thank you so much. Then also on YouTube, I noticed I really thought the two vlogs I did, I was like, I actually don't think anyone cares. How silly is this that I'm filming? I'm just trying to get out extra content for people and also try and document a little bit of the journey myself, because my last prep, as many of you know who may have listened to the episodes where I've explained my mindset and my mental health in my last prep, a lot of that was spent really putting myself down, really not loving myself, and really not documenting the journey because I didn't think that it would be worthwhile documenting. And boy, oh boy, this time the hunger is so different. The drive is so different, and it's such an internal drive, and I feel so connected and aligned with my goals. And I just want to share that with you guys, the organization process, the everything between when it comes to prepping for a bodybuilding competition, and the fact that the athletic mindset, the habits and the behaviors that you choose to have, they start now. The moment that you decide you're going to do a bodybuilding competition, you're in prep, quote unquote. And so the important thing to note is that every action you take is going to be filling up that account, whether it's the account to progress closer towards your goals, or the opposite end of the spectrum where we are taking out from that account, withdrawing and getting further away from those goals. And so for me, I really am taking every opportunity that I see in front of me as, how can I grow from this? How can I learn from this so that I can be a better individual, a better coach, a better friend, a better athlete, and really reflecting on my weeks and using sort of my notes as what I see happening and little changes I can make to make myself a better individual moving forward. And then as well as that, in terms of being a better athlete, being able to submit and give all of my data to my coach and trust my coach to do all the math and the nitty gritty this time. Whereas if I can just focus on bringing the best version of myself, it's going to be absolutely awesome. So yes, I hope you guys are enjoying those episodes. The reason I bring up the YouTube is because it's really funny. Some of these podcast episodes might only get 30 or 40 plays, okay? And the YouTube, after 1 week, and I know there's more hashtags on it, has almost 200 views. And again, these are small numbers compared to sort of big podcasts and that sort of a thing. But to the small girl doing coaching, it's really awesome to see that you guys are interested and listening, wanting to learn more, and hopefully inspired by what you get to watch, listen to, see. And then, yeah, so connect with me on Instagram if you are enjoying everything, because it just drives me to be more creative and showcase more to you guys. On that note, let's get into some questions. Now, I'm going to start with the Instagram ones, and then the NGL ones, most of them are sort of more personal. So we'll start from Instagram. And the first one is, how do you train through a niggling injury? I'm so guilty of pushing through it. And I think the important thing, imagine if this was like a call-in recording, like a call-in radio show. Anyways, the main thing when we have a niggling injury and pushing through said injury, if you are pushing through, and I say this, there's nuances to everything, but if you are pushing through with fantastic technique and the injury does not involve excess pressure and compression on a joint, you should be able to train through that injury without aggravating it. Now, what I mean by this, and so when I first started coaching at the gym that I used to work at, I worked very closely with the physios, and I thought I would be the glute girl, the booty builder. And all of a sudden, pretty much like 75% of my clients were referrals from the physio, where we worked together to build their program. But or just friends of friends telling other friends. And it was all lower back injury clients, which is really cool because it's something that so many of us face. And so many of us have the limiting sort of belief when we do have a sore back, when we've got poor posture, everything in between, that is just something we're not going to be able to shake. And so when it comes to lower back injuries, what is one of the best exercises to actually strengthen everything that helps to protect your lower back is a Romanian deadlift and a deadlift. And of course, if you go to some GPs, they'll be like, no, never lift weights again, never deadlift again. Or if you deadlift and you're constantly getting hurt, it's like, oh, it's the deadlift. No, 9 times out of 10, like 9.9 times out of 10, it's your technique. And so a lot of the times, unless the injury is something that's more joint and compression related, if it's something that isn't going to be exacerbated by moving through a really nice aligned range of motion, then you should be able to continue training as per normal around that injury quite easily. This goes similar sort of a thing for your shoulder. If it is something where the center, so you've got the humerus, which is the bone at the top of the shoulder and at the top of the arm, and then you got the joint, okay, at the top of the shoulder. Now, what happens is a lot of the time, if it's a shoulder injury, is as we're lowering things like our dumbbells, our barbells, our humerus and the top of that humerus isn't actually staying around the center of the joint, okay, where all of the sort of tendons and ligaments surrounding it can be compressed to the right amount, but nice and evenly, so all sharing the load. What often happens is that with poor posture or sort of poor positioning or fatigue, similar sort of thing, leads to that poor positioning, is that humerus, instead of it sitting in the center of the joint, it begins to internally rotate forward, compress all of the tendons and ligaments at the front of the joint, and then overstretch things like our rotator cuff at the back of the joint, that sort of a thing. Over time, you repeat this enough times, you get injured. And then, of course, because it's one of those maybe key muscle groups you want to not lose, you want to keep building, of course, you push through it, you get injured again, you stick to that same cycle. In terms of training through a niggling injury and being guilty of pushing through it, I definitely will consistently train even if I am injured, and I will work around it. The physios that I see, shout out to the right physio in Coogee. The physios that I see when I have a particular injury, they're sports physios. They all train. And so when I say, what can I add into my warm-up? What exercises should I be avoiding? What exercises should I be including more of? Okay, it's important that when you have an injury, you see a professional and the right professional for it. But then as well as that, you ask the right questions. Because if you just go, I've seen the physio, they've given me these exercises, bada bing, bada boom, cool. You might gently rehab the injury, but how do you progress from there without regressing when you are someone who knows how to push hard in the gym? Okay. And so this is where making sure that you ask the right questions to your physio. And if they tell you avoid it completely, maybe look at a new physio, look at a new chiro, that sort of a thing. But you need to go to professionals who also strength train, who also do consistently train in the gym, and ask them the right questions. Okay, what can I add into my training routine? Okay, for if it's a hip problem, for my lower body days, my leg days, what should I be including more of? What should I be avoiding so that I can continue to build muscle and get stronger? Next question. How do you darken the images for the story post? Now that's really easy. You click a little button where it's the drawing function, and then you go into highlight and the highlight option, select your color, and then hold down the screen where the little drawing where you would be drawing a highlighted thing. Hold down the screen, and if you hold it down, then 3, 2, 1, it should highlight the whole screen evenly with that color. Of course, I choose black, and that darkens the images. Now, next one is how to get confidence for new things. So new exercises, new sports, things where you might need to take a step back first. And so for this, I wanted to break it down a little bit further and break it down into getting confident in trying new things, building new habits, and I guess keeping our mindset at bay while we are working on really honoring the fact that we're a student in something that we're learning. Now, it's really important to remember that as a student, you will always be refining. As someone who has been coaching other individuals for over 7.5 years, someone who has been training myself for over 10 years, I still get feedback from my coach on the same exercises that I've been doing for a decade. Okay, I've been lifting that same exercise for a decade. And she's like, you need to take weight off and adjust this. What? And so it's very easy for our ego to put us in a space where if we're out of our comfort zone, where we have to readjust and relearn something new, where it's like, you know what, I'm just not going to do it anyways. And so with this, what I did a little bit of research on is getting confident in trying new things and really breaking it down into layman's terms. And so there is 7 little points here. And with that, the first one is starting small. So when we're trying something new, gradual exposure. The reason why this works is because the brain feels safer when we take baby steps rather than jumping into something big all at once, unless you're a big adrenaline junkie. This is called gradual exposure, helps to reduce fear over time with those new things. Often, if you say give someone a training program, every single exercise is one they have never done before. It's very overwhelming, it's very hard, and it's a lot for the brain to absorb, trying to get a grasp on all of these things that are happening. And so what do we do when we give someone a new training program who may be totally brand new to the gym? We give them the basics and we work our way up. So we give the brain something that's slightly familiar, and then we tweak it and we add a little bit of a habit stack on top, or we sandwich a little bit of a cue to focus on. So this would be as simple as calling, instead of giving someone a heels elevated barbell front squat, okay, which is great exercise for an advanced athlete. Instead of giving someone a heels elevated barbell front squat, we instead give them a squat holding onto a plate, sitting onto a box, okay? And we just say, just call it a box squat and be like, it's basically a sit down, stand up off a chair. Brain hears sit down, stand up off a chair. It's like, I know how to do that. That's that small step forward. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to associate the words sit down, stand up off a chair with box squat. So the following week, the client comes in, hey, we're going to start with our box squats. And all of a sudden you're like, that's my sit down, stand up. Let's go. Before you know it, you're progressing from a plate to a dumbbell, something slightly heavier. And before you know it, you get a barbell on your back over weeks in the program, that sort of a thing. You're feeling more confident because we started small. Whereas if you've never been in a gym and your coach goes, okay, we're going to slap a bar on your front delts. You don't even know what the delts are. And it's like, we're going to slap a bar here, we're going to elevate your heels, and then I want you to squat. And this person's like, I thought squatting was staying in a house that you're not paying rent for. And so it's really important that we start small and we gradually build up. Everyone, and in terms of even the most advanced lifters, still have small little tweaks in their program and still have moments. Hattie Boydell, one of my inspos, you guys can listen to the episode with her as well. But she has had a recurring back injury that I've noticed come up for her over the years, where she ends up having to regress for a period of time back to plate squats and like dumbbell squats. Whereas she's someone who, when she barbell squats, I want to say her top weight is like 120 or 140 kilos. It could be way off. It could be 160. But she's very, very strong, very strong. But still, when it comes to retraining the brain, if for her coming back from an injury, that sort of a thing, you're retraining the brain. If you jump straight into 140 and you go, just don't do that thing again that may have hurt you, it's a big jump. So instead, we always, even with masters, when it comes to reinstilling a new habit or trying something new, trying something with a slight variation, practice and starting small is going to be key in making that more comfortable for you to progress with that said task. And then another thing is, in terms of growth mindset, is reframing your failure as learning. So remembering when things are not what you thought they were, when you're doing a technique for an exercise and you're like, this is good, but my shoulders hurt. It's like, that's okay. It's not the end of the world that we're making these adjustments here, that it might feel so much more difficult with different technique, but it's safer for your shoulder, hypothetically. With that sort of a thing, if we can reframe the changes that we have to make as stepping stones forward, okay, as learning, we can help to nurture a growth mindset. Because what happens when our brain gets stuck in fear, so when we're doing something wrong, we're feeling like we've done something wrong, we're feeling like we're in trouble, okay, we start to see that failure as a threat. But really, failure is first attempt in learning, for the acronym. But really, when we see failure as a learning experience instead, where we're getting our hands in, okay, we're recalibrating, our brain becomes more open to trying again, to perceiving the information differently, to organizing it differently, and then to actually instilling that sort of a neural pathway where then it's so much easier for you to progress forward with that thing that the first time you did it was once very difficult. And now it's like, this makes total sense. This feels really comfortable. I'm really glad that we've begun this journey of looking at taking a step back with particular things so that we could then launch ourselves forward over the long term. Now, the next question, and I also did a bit of research on this, but I do have my own opinions with this, is, and there's 3 questions here. Do you talk about GMO, so genetically modified organisms? Do you talk about GMOs and the possible effects of food sterilizing males and females? And then I've also subbed to the YouTube channel, so if you talk about GMO and sterilization, I'll tune in. I'm not sure if that's a threat or not, but no, just kidding. And then the last one is, actually, do you conspiracy? So that's You know, when you're asking, like your brain's just going and your stuff's just coming out? That's what those 3 questions, I read them as just like bang, 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 one after the other. Now, when it comes to GMOs in food, and so as everyone who is no doubt interested in the podcast, the YouTube, the everything in between, the content, the coaching, I don't agree with ultra processed foods for many reasons. Okay. They really have little benefit to majority of the population's health. And although they may be cheaper, even in countries that are much more poor, much more quote unquote worse off to someone who lives in a first world country, when we give these people who may be in a third world country or a poorer economy, we give them all of these GMO foods because they're cheaper. What ends up happening is, so GMO and ultra processed foods falling into the same category here. I'll pop them sort of, but ultra processed foods, sorry, I'm rambling on about first. When we give them the ultra processed foods, they start to eat more of it. They start to become less active, have more inflammation, have more disease that they never had before. When a lot of these countries that may have been what we see as a first world country worse off were far healthier, living more off the land and sharing food with each other, all that sort of a thing. And then the ultra processed food market comes in and just absolutely dominates. And so, of course, people are eating more ultra processed foods. Then again, inflammation is increasing, brain function decreasing. People are putting on weight, getting more obese. It's becoming harder to move, harder to stay active. And all of a sudden, these people who were living healthy lives for their village are now, and if you hear the story about the Nestle boat, I want to say it was a Nestle boat I could be totally butchering this. It's in the ultra processed book, which I will link in the show notes as well, because it was just a fantastic eye-opening book to read. Me trying not to forget stuff. In terms of ultra processed foods, I definitely think that the sterilizing in males and females from particular foods we eat, I think it's just one cog in the wheel. And so I don't think in terms of gene disruption with GMO foods, so genetically modified foods, one thing is there is lots of potential that the altered gene expression in particular foods could lead to reproductive issues. There is animal studies where we can see this, similar sort of a thing with herbicides and pesticides. But the most important thing is that, and especially if you live in a first world country, we typically have so many other little things that all compound up and add together that put us in such a poor, ill state of health. And so with that, what I wrote down here, where I can find it, what I wrote down here, that's right. In terms of the environmental factors, I think it's a multifaceted sort of issue that needs to be addressed by someone. And I also think that the healthier you are as an individual, the less of these potential sort of issues you have arise, less of these potential health issues you have arise, but also the less of these things you have in your environment or use. Okay, so a lot of people will look at when we're removing environmental factors that are endocrine disruptors, so disrupting our hormone production and potentially sterilizing males and females. We have to look at sort of living off very basic, very simple living. It's basically, long story short. And in my opinion, convenience always has another price to pay. And often that convenience, you might be paying a bit more money, but often there is another hidden cost that's either paid for over the long term or paid for instantly, but you just don't realize what it is. You just don't connect the dots. And I also want to say, in terms of my opinion to this and nuances to this, because we're about to talk about forever chemicals and plastics, that sort of a thing. As someone who has a breast augmentation, as someone who has had filler many times before, someone who has had Botox, I often get as someone who has tattoos as well, I often get the sort of funny look when it's like we're avoiding particular foods, particular fragrances, perfumes, chemicals, all that sort of a thing. And this is where, if you are choosing to improve your health, what matters is all of those little things, just like all of the little things in our environment add up to disrupt our hormones. All of the little things we do to prioritize our health help to heal our hormones. And so I definitely, when it comes to explaining this, I don't want to say I'm perfect by any means, and I don't want to poo-poo anyone who is the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I think there is the need for informed decision-making and taking responsibility for your own health, and taking responsibility for your own illness, okay? Now, when it comes to taking responsibility for your own health, there are also many things that we can do to help detox our body and help put our body in better states of health. Many great supplements, gut protocol regimes, again, avoiding particular foods, including more foods, grounding out in nature, going for ocean swims. All of these beautiful things add up. So I don't want to be poo-pooing one end or the other. I'm definitely very much pro-health, but like I said, I'm pro sort of removing things that are potentially disrupting your hormones. But like I said, I'm also literally like I have a manicure on as well. In terms of avoiding, I have a Bluetooth Apple Watch. Everyone here with an Oura Ring or an Apple Watch or a Whoop, like you're the same with EMFs. In terms of being perfect and trying to chase perfect, I do think it's very hard to function in society, if you're functioning in society, very hard to function in society without having some of these pop up. So you want to do the best that you can to minimize toxicity and excess toxicity around you and in your home for that to improve your chances of naturally staying really nice and fertile. Okay. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, the more things of these that you find in your home or in your environment, maybe the likelihood is over the long term, especially, you begin to suffer with your fertility. You go to try to have babies and you end up feeling like you need to do IVF. You have PCOS, endometriosis, you like have early menopause. There are so many health impacts on us that happen as a cumulative buildup of toxins and shit in our environment. So I'm hoping that in terms of, again, GMO being what sterilizes us, I do think there's many other little pockets of our environment that, because they've become so just integral in our society, it may be very hard to avoid absolutely everything. So you want to do your best and minimize what you can and choose better options. And if it's a full upheaval of your life, then instead minimizing options one by one. Because remember, when we're trying something new, when we're trying to progress in our life, if we look at it as one big, I've got to turn everything upside down, okay, it's going to be, the likelihood is that it's going to be very hard to stick to. So choosing little things one at a time and making different swaps. So we'll get into it here with things that are endocrine disruptors, which may be potentially in your body's natural hormone production and altering your ability to stay fertile, have kids, perform at your best, because it's really important as females as well. Your fertility is a great guide of how well you can perform as an athlete, how well you can perform cognitively, and obviously how well you can perform as a parent, because you can't have a baby without being fertile. Now, I mean, can you can clone? Yep, you can. Anyways, nuances. I'm not going to get into it. So with endocrine disruptors, forever chemicals, PFAs, okay, basically they're a group of synthetic chemicals commonly used in non-stick cookware, okay, water repellent fabrics and food packaging. How they disrupt hormones. PFAs are known to interfere with thyroid hormones, which regulate your metabolism and can also affect reproductive hormones like estrogen and testosterone. Their persistence in the environment, hence the name forever chemicals, makes them difficult to eliminate from the body, leading to chronic exposure and potential long-term effects on hormone imbalance. The health impacts of PFAs, so our non-stick cookware and cooking with that, in particular, food packaging being more plastic, basically forever plastics, that sort of a thing, microplastics, is reduced fertility, developmental delays in children, okay, and increased risk of certain cancers. Next, fragrances. So what they are. So typically we put our favorite perfume on, we put our favorite moisturizer on, we spray the countertops, we have our candles lit in the house. Okay, we use our favorite body wash, we put our deodorant on, I already said light the candles, clean the house. What am I missing? We have a car air freshener. So much stuff. You go into other restaurants, they've got things burning, all that sort of a thing. In terms of fragrances, when it comes to natural fragrances, like our beautiful essential oils, which are absolutely amazing, and there's some really great natural perfumes now on the market, but basically fragrances, or phthalates, I think that's how you pronounce it. What they are is chemicals that are used to make plastics flexible and also found in many personal care products, fragrances, and household items. How they disrupt hormones, okay, they're known to mimic or block hormones like estrogen and testosterone, particularly affecting reproductive health. They can impair testosterone production, potentially leading to fertility issues in men, and may increase the risk of early puberty or reproductive disorders in women. The health impacts associated with all of these fragrances is reduced sperm quality, early onset of puberty in girls, reproductive issues, and developmental problems in children. Microplastics, here's my boys. What they are is tiny plastic particles. They're found in the air. You can't avoid them. Found in the air, water, and food due to the breakdown of larger plastic waste. how they disrupt hormones. Microplastics can lead to harmful chemicals such as bisphenol A, BPAs, and phthalates. I'm pretty sure the pH is silent in front of that, which act as endocrine disruptors. These chemicals can interfere with hormone receptors, potentially leading to imbalances in estrogen, androgen, and thyroid hormones. The health impacts of our microplastics is long-term exposure, being linked to metabolic disorders, reproductive dysfunction, and immune system dysfunction. Aluminium, the favorite thing in our deodorants that makes them, or one of the ingredients that makes them antiperspirant. Okay, we were made to sweat. Okay, we sweat, we have sweat glands, and the reason why we have them is because it helps us detox from our body, helps us dispel excess body heat. Okay, we are meant to sweat, we're not really meant to smell. So that's a deeper sign of an issue that needs to be addressed. And the more you just block your sweat glands, the more you avoid this. Okay, the more you avoid healing and detoxing properly. So aluminium, what is it? A metal. It's commonly used in our food packaging, cookware, and personal care products like antiperspirants. How it disrupts hormones is it can act as a neurotoxin, potentially interfering with the hypothalamus and pituitary glands, which regulate hormone production. It's also thought to contribute to oxidative stress and inflammation, which can indirectly affect our hormone balance. Okay, it is linked to reproductive issues, neurodevelopmental disorders, and conditions like Alzheimer's. That's a big claim on aluminium. Polyester and synthetic fabrics. Now, what they are. Synthetic fabrics are made from petroleum-based products, often treated with chemicals for durability and water resistance. Okay, I'm not looking at a lot of the activewear products we buy, but I'm just saying a lot of the activewear products we buy. And this, again, where I was saying before, in terms of being a functioning member in society, swapping things out one by one is definitely nice, and picking sort of what you need to minimize and what you can minimize, but then also understanding that with that convenience, okay, or with your priorities and where they are, if some things are not perfect, it's okay. And as someone who wears a lot of activewear, if I was wearing bamboo and cotton loose fitting items all day, maybe when I'm on my farm in the future with my babies, I will. But right now, with where I am, I still wear these. I do want to make a side note as well that in terms of our vaginal microbiome, I'm really going deep here, but in terms of our vaginal microbiome, polyester and synthetic fabrics can obviously disrupt that microbiome. So please always wear underwear with your activewear. Always wear cotton underwear or bamboo underwear, but stuff that doesn't have polyester and synthetic fabrics, which is a lot of your, if you have a read, a lot of your seamless products. Okay. Now, synthetic fabrics, so they're made from petroleum-based products, often treated with chemicals for durability and water resistance. They disrupt hormones by off-gassing harmful chemicals like formaldehyde and phthalates, which are absorbed through the skin. Okay, these can act as endocrine disruptors, particularly affecting estrogen and testosterone pathways. Okay, this is a potential for skin irritation when we wear these, endocrine disruption, and exacerbation of respiratory conditions. Now, I don't know about you, but there's some pretty good runners out there who wear polyester and synthetic fabrics whose respiratory conditions are okay. But, like I was saying before, there are definitely things in our environment that they all add up and can accumulate to a lot of toxic load. What you can minimize, amazing, but then also don't just absolutely fret if you can, at least in terms of vaginal microbiome, and likewise for the boys with family jewels, if we can wear cotton or bamboo-based products, and when you're in the house as well, when you're at home, free ball, please. Okay, when you're wearing a sundress, girls, if it's long, okay, maybe not if it's short, but if it's long, free ball. Free ball as much as you can is what I would say as well in terms of dealing with this. But again, I always try and wear cotton underwear and try and wear cotton underwear or bamboo, but really try and keep it nice and breathable as much as possible, and that will help as well. Then the next one is ultra-processed foods. So foods that are highly processed with added sugars, fats, preservatives, artificial colors, and flavors. Think of snacks, fast foods, your packaged meals, and they disrupt hormones because they often contain endocrine disrupting chemicals like BPA, phthalates, and preservatives that interfere with the hormone production and regulation. Okay, additionally, high levels of refined sugars and unhealthy fats can disrupt our insulin and our leptin, leading to metabolic issues and hormonal imbalances. Okay, our ultra-processed foods are associated with so much disease. Obesity, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, reproductive issues, and increased risk of chronic diseases. Basically, like, again, there is a time and a place where it could be the only thing available, and it could be very important and useful. And I definitely think, and this is another great thing about the book that's Ultra Processed People, I think it's called, but again, I'll link it, is, again, the author highlights he's not being like poo-pooing anyone. But he's basically saying in terms of how these foods are made, they're made for money. And so when it comes to these foods being genetically modified to be tastier, be easier to eat, have just the right amount of crunch, just the right amount of palatability, all that sort of a thing, so that we consume more of them, just the right amount of sugar that it can tick off the brain's sort of like addictive pathways, that sort of a thing. That's just what they're made for. And if you enjoy them, by all means, you can still include some of them in your life and it's not going to kill you, okay? But there is very little, if any, health benefit unless you are absolutely emaciated from food or really needing some carbohydrates from lollies. Like, so say like someone with diabetes who could be having low blood sugar, the only thing around is like the most ultra processed lollies or like jelly snakes, that sort of a thing. It's probably a good idea to eat them. So again, ultra processed foods, they have really very little value, but it also doesn't mean that they should be completely removed from your diet. If there's something that you enjoy, just know that they should be minimized, and they are, the more that you have, of course, as well. But they are going to be affecting your health negatively, especially, again, accumulated compounding over the long term. Personal care products, so parabens and triclosan. Now, what they are, parabens are preservatives found in cosmetics and personal care products. Triclosan is an antimicrobial agent used in soaps and toothpaste. How they disrupt hormones. Both parabens and triclosan are known to mimic or interfere with estrogen and androgen pathways. They can bind to hormone receptors and block the natural action of hormones, leading to reproductive issues and hormone-related cancers. Health impacts linked to breast cancer, reproductive toxicity, and disruption of thyroid and hormone functions. So the main factors is these endocrine disruptors. And again, I am rambling on from this with the genetically modified food. I think it's one piece of a puzzle of what is sterilizing our country, what is giving our country, what is sterilizing many, many people around the world, or interfering with their child's developmental health. I do think food is obviously a huge aspect. It's what goes in your mouth, but it is also all around us in our environment. And so it's important when we can do things like the little swaps, like swapping our care, our personal care, so our body wash, our moisturizer, our makeup products, our deodorants, all that sort of a thing. Swapping them for more natural products is our perfumes. It's only going to have benefits, okay? Making sure that we can wear cotton or free ball where we can, being barefoot outside where we can so we can ground and detox. All amazing things. So it's really important that these endocrine disruptors, they are pretty much everywhere. So we want to make sure that we can do our best to maintain a healthy lifestyle around them. And instead of maybe doing a full upheaval of your life, if it's something that just doesn't seem possible or viable because there's so many things to change, start one at a time. Okay, I know all of my cleaning products that I purchase are all natural. All the cleaning products that my mum might buy in a rush, majority of the time are not going to be natural. And so we're still back and forth. We live in the same house, and I'm a bit of a narc. I'll be like, don't buy that. Don't bring that in here. You use that for work. Use my one. I've just replaced it with. But at the end of the day, again, if you live with other people, if you go to work in an office with other people, there's going to be things like the hand sanitizer that's going to have 50 sort of different little things in it that could be affecting and disrupting your hormones. Hand sanitizing your hands all the time probably will too. Anyways, the main reason these endocrine disruptors do what they do is they mimic hormones a lot of the time. So many of these chemicals are structurally similar to natural hormones, such as our estrogen, and so this allows them to bind to our hormone receptors, which either overstimulates them or blocks the natural hormone activity, which leads to imbalances. It can interfere with hormone synthesis, and so some chemicals affect the synthesizing of hormones, either by inhibiting the enzymes responsible for hormone production or by causing the overproduction of certain hormones, which can disrupt the entire endocrine hormone system. And then, of course, impact on hormone transport and metabolism. So certain chemicals can interfere with the way hormones are transported through the bloodstream and metabolized by the liver, affecting their availability and ability to function. And then chronic exposure. So again, many of these chemicals accumulate in the body over time due to their persistence in the environment and slow breakdown. Chronic exposure leads to prolonged hormone disruption, contributing to long-term health issues. Again, what I suggest for many people, In terms of perfumes, if it's something you just can't let go of yet, instead of spraying it on your skin, spray it on your clothes, okay? And then make sure, let's have a look at your body wash. Do we change your body wash this week? Do we change your moisturizer? Two huge things that if we can remove the endocrine disruptors as much as possible from those, keep them quite basic, quite simple, you put that over your entire body. And your skin is your largest organ. Your skin absorbs everything you put on it, okay? Little things like that, little changes like that are all so handy. So definitely, I know this can be quite overwhelming. I know I've just spent the better part of like 15, 20 minutes answering this question about food sterilizing our population. I think it's a bigger puzzle. I definitely think food is a huge piece of it. But definitely when it comes to improving your hormones, male or female, naturally, there are many things in your environment that a little swap here, a little swap there over the course of a year, over the course of a few years, as you slowly integrate your life to lower toxicity items one thing at a time, you can work on improving your health. And then remember to take the responsibility and ownership if you choose to do things that are disrupting your health and your health is not improving and you choose not to change them. It is your responsibility. So I hope that gives a good answer to the question. Again, it was like, I think it's a very big puzzle, and I think they're all little pieces that we can accumulate and pick up over time to make those little adjustments to make our lives healthier and make us feel and function at our best. And then, of course, next question, do I conspiracy? I'm going to leave it there so I don't get shadow banned or anything. I might still get shadow banned, but majority of the time, yes. I probably think the Earth is not flat, though. Sorry, I do think I am a bit into space, and I do think the Earth is a globe. Sorry who unfollows me. Now, the next one we're going to get into is, because I'm only going to stay on here for another 5 minutes answering these questions, the NGL questions. Again, I think it's really funny. There's not, I always am like, are people going to say, what weight do I need to lose to do this? What foods should I cut out for better hormones? All that sort of a thing. And it's like, are you in a relationship or are you single? Whose business is it? And it's like, yeah, I got a crush on you. I'm like, so useful. Not. In terms of answering them, though, because I obviously will answer them because they've been asked. Not that it's sort of, I'm going to dive deep into anything. But in terms of being in a relationship or single, I'd like to say the most like empowering thing ever, which is I'm in a relationship with myself. I think if Prince Charming rocked up on the doorstep, amazing. But at the same time, I am someone who I have been in some beautiful relationships over the years and have learned so much from them and learned even more in hindsight and been even more grateful for them in hindsight as well, which it would be nice to be grateful at the time. But you're so filled with other different emotions that you might not experience just the amount of gratitude you can in hindsight at those little things when you're out of it. But this actually, it's been such a beautiful experience for me to not be in a relationship at the moment and having not have been in one for quite a few months. It's really taught me to ask myself, like, what do I want? And it was something that when I was speaking to my business mentor about my why with my business, so much of my why for my business has always been heavily revolved around working things to a position where when I'm ready to start a family, everything can continue flowing and it's just absolutely awesome. And I can take a step back and I can come back in as a mum and everything will still function and flow in the business that is I Am Strength. And it's been such a learning experience for me, realizing that why now, like who, in terms of sort of building a family, there are so many, you have to learn so much about a person. Obviously, it's nice if you end up falling pregnant sooner rather than later, then it's, you work through it, hopefully. But yeah, I'm at a stage now where I feel that being on my own for the better part is giving me so much space to actually hear who I actually am and what I actually want. So that obviously it's a yes or no question, but I thought I would just give a bit of story behind it too. And the next one is, where do you stay at when you go to Bali? And so I've always stayed when I was a party girl in Seminyak. And then since I've been more into my health, been more into work and online coaching, all that sort of a thing, I stay in Seminyak. Now, Seminyak is I see it as the Bondi of Bali. Okay, it's everyone who's there is like quite nomadic, quite sort of like Bali is very much like an adult sort of playground, like an adult's escape. And so I feel like, and kids obviously can still go there, but even in the fitness community, I do feel like it's very sort of, people are transient there. No one that I have met is really looking to stake and build much of a legacy there. It's a passing sort of business venture for a lot of people, all that sort of a thing. CANGGU is very busy. I feel like it's very much like the Bondi of Bali. I went to Sese for a photo shoot, so I was only there very briefly, but it was so beautiful, so peaceful, and so quiet. And it really reminded me of like home, so eastern suburbs of Sydney, where it is more quiet, that sort of a thing. And just being like exploring on the Coral. There's not too many shops. There's not too many tourists around, which granted on the weekend it's busy in Sydney at the eastern suburbs. But yeah, it was really beautiful. So I think I want to stay in Sese for a little bit the next time I'm there because it was just so nice and quiet. But I have always stayed in CANGGU. I love Motion, Fitness Foods Cafe. And in terms of where I trained up before, Body Factory and Elite Fit, mainly. Been to Obsidian once. It looks beautiful, don't get me wrong. There's heaps of other great gyms there now, but I'm really excited to go to Jackson Pios's gym when it opens in December, hopefully, which is called the Undefeated Gym, or Undefeated Gym. Maybe there's no the. But yeah, so I'll probably stay in Sese for a little bit next time just to have a little bit of adventure and exploring a new place that's not hustle bustle in the middle of partying and fitness and busy socializing, everything in between. But CANGGU is, again, where I usually stay just because from a business perspective and a socializing perspective, it's very good. It just is like Bondi of Sydney, and I stay in one of the more quiet sides of the eastern suburbs because I like that little bit of quiet time. The next question, I honestly don't think, whoever this is, I don't think they'd even listen to the podcast, and I'm not going to answer it because it's just a stupid question, but just so you guys know not to ask it again. And also so if it brings anyone a little bit of a giggle while they're listening to this after we've had some serious like scientific chat and sort of nuances of life. Its favorite position. You can interpret this how you want. Winky face. Like, shut up. Anyways, then I'm going to answer 3 more questions. And these few questions are from one of my awesome clients. It's really cute. In terms of the questions, it's what lights you up and what is your soul's purpose in this life? And I feel like a huge thing that really lights me up, really makes me happy. I love seeing people get what they're doing. Like I love seeing people connect dots and achieve little sort of wins and big wins, but achieve little wins that tick them along to believing more of what they're capable of. And it's really beautiful in terms of I Am Strength's story and why we chose the name I Am Strength. When I first chose it, I still hated it. Something was wrong with it. But ultimately why I chose it was I Am Strength is an affirmation. It's a mantra. It's like, I can do this. Like I am not just strong. Okay. I'm not just strong internally or externally. Like I am the physical embodiment of strength. And if I am the physical embodiment of strength internally and externally, spiritually and like emotionally, everything in between, if I'm the physical embodiment of strength, what am I capable of achieving? And so every goal that I watch clients set and I watch them tick off the little, very monotonous, usually habits that you have to tick off that seem so insignificant at the time, I absolutely just love watching them achieve those small wins and watching them compound into big wins. And so that really lights me up, is seeing other people absolutely winning and happy and proud of themselves and just overcoming adversities, how far they've come, believing in themselves. I just absolutely love that. And then what celebrity or character would you choose to be you in a movie? And Gal Gadot, I think it's Gadot, of course, which I would love to be Wonder Woman as well. But yeah, I would love to say Penelope Cruz, but I feel like no one really gets to see. I honestly don't act like that sultry side of me. It's there, but I'm so much more, I feel like, dorky in one end, but then also professional, I think. Anyways, so I would love Gal Gadot to play me. And then in terms of some books, docos, or podcasts that I'm loving right now and I would recommend, I am a big fan of listening to a lot of Andrew Huberman, Diary of a CEO, The Mindset Mentor. They're the 3 main sort of very like masculine ones and very sort of applicable science-based action-taking ones. But I also am a big fan, and it helps me tap into my feminine energy. It helps me to love and accept and bring joy to little parts of me that create more flow in my life. And they're more feminine energy podcasts. And there's one that's called This Bitch is Positive. and she's got like quite a thick Texan accent. I think she's from Texas. I think South, definitely. But yeah, this bitch is positive. There's Being Her, and then there's another one, Date Yourself Instead, and Manifestation Babe. So there are a few of the podcasts that I absolutely love. And then again, I'm always up to date with the Andrew Huberman's Diary of a CEO and the Mindset Mentor. I always love staying up to date with those because it really helps me to apply those sorts of rules and everything in between to my business, and then make sure that we're ahead of the curve in terms of everything being more accurate and yeah, more up to speed. I also shout out to anyone who watches this on YouTube and reading Rob Dial's book, The Mindset Mentor. Absolutely awesome book so far. Very applicable, very easy to read as well. And then in terms of the other book that I'm reading, I'm still finishing You Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And then the next book in line from that, because I'm reading that and Level Up. The next one that I'm reading is Becoming Supernatural, which is also Joe Dispenza. I just went on a weird Dispenza run a couple months ago, and I was like, I've got to get all of them, because I had one or two of his books that I've read, and I've read one on Audible that just changed my life, and I wanted to know the rest of them. I hope you guys have enjoyed that Q&A session. Definitely something a little bit different to what we usually do. And I hope that if you guys like them, if we get some more views, if we get some more listens and you guys are really liking them, we can do more. And then in terms of asking questions that relate more to you, in terms of asking questions that relate to your health journey, I love answering those. I love getting deep into those. Sure, very happy that we're answering some more personal ones today, because it helps you guys to get along with me, because I know it's one thing that I struggle with is definitely being able to share my own stories and my own, especially like if I'm struggling, like I don't want anyone to know. It's such a perfectionist trait. And it's something that having a coach has been quite hard for me the first 6 months when I had Sig as my mentor, to ask for help, because I'm like, I should be able to do it on my own. And that's a trauma response, girl. But yes, so I hope you guys have enjoyed learning a little bit more about random little questions. And then for the next one, you guys are going to be super excited for the guest, I hope. And if you haven't heard of her, you will know her after this podcast. She's absolutely awesome. And then last but not least, in terms of the 8 weeks to wellness challenge, it is basically 2 weeks away from starting. In terms of 8 weeks to really reset your health, reset your goals, make sure that your lifestyle is aligned with your goals, achieving them, succeeding with them, and then maintaining and building upon them. Okay, the 8 weeks to wellness challenge is going to include so much great education, tips, training, nutrition, and weekly Q&As recorded where you can submit questions, but then also jump on the live with both myself and Coach Soph. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you are interested in knowing more about the 8 weeks to wellness challenge, just shoot me a message on Instagram. It can be an emoji and I will know what you're talking about if you're a fire emoji. But yeah, we start in 2 weeks, and it would be really cool in terms of, again, getting yourself geared up so that by the time November rolls around, you are locked and loaded with all of your best lifestyle habits to have your best summer ever. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day, evening, anything in between from whenever you're listening to this, and I'll catch you in the next episode.